All right, thank you everyone for waking up this morning and signing on. Again, this is kind of a replacement for the mentor camp that we were going to have in Clarkston. We're going to go through most of the same material and try to answer any questions that you had. I know John had some specific how do you form a team questions. I sent out a link earlier to our Toolkit for Success, which is a document that Team Rush has developed over the years. Excuse me. It's a good resource to download. It goes through most of the things for the first season. So if we take a quick look at the table of contents, it goes through business stuff, financials and fundraising, one of our fundraising events that we do, the Rush Regatta, how to create a sponsorship proposal package. There's community impact and getting the word out to your community. Probably the things that you're going to focus on the most this year as a rookie would be the build season and competition season sections. There's also a chapter specifically designed for rookies that are based on the conference calls that we do. And then there's also parent support. So I'm going to quickly just kind of skim over this document and pick out a couple high points to look at. So the first chapter is just an introduction, introduction to FIRST. There is a good page on internet resources, other teams to look at their web pages for information, different fundraising opportunities, different technical sites. So there's some more supporting information, a letter from President Obama. So things that you could use to help get people interested in FIRST. So chapter 2 goes into business. So talking about a business plan. So for the Entrepreneurship Award, you have to submit a business plan. So this kind of gives you a quick little example about the mission statement, history, and team information. For our section 2.2 is on team structure. So just understanding how to set up your team, talking about how there should be some type of a leader of the meetings that can kind of run the meetings and get everybody organized. The important part in here that probably will help or will speak to John's question is teams and sub-teams. So basically, is that a question?
No, I didn't have one. Sorry, I didn't mute it. I had someone else in the background. So.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. So we basically divide our team during the build season into a couple different groups. So we have 3 separate build groups that are responsible for designing and building the robots. We have the chassis, which is responsible for the lower part of the robot, the locomotion part. So wheels, if we do treads, whatever we do to move the robot is the chassis' responsibility. We then have above chassis, which does any type of supporting structure or containment device. I don't know if you've looked at some pictures in previous years, but some years we've had to carry around balls. So the above chassis group would be responsible for building the structure to hold the balls. And then we'd have an object collection or object distribution group that would be responsible for either picking up the balls or shooting out the balls. And they would be responsible for basically anything that handles the game object. In addition to that, we have our programming controls group. So our programming group is responsible for the programming of the robot. The controls group is responsible for wiring up the components and getting everything up and running. And then we have a media and management group. So they're responsible for helping to keep all the other groups on tasks, ordering uniforms, trying to get travel reservations made. Now, if you have a small team, you don't need to have all these groups. You know, you may just have a build group and an electrical controls group. Just a division of the students to be able to get the robot constructed. Some other groups that we have is some corporate sponsorship, liaison groups that communicate with our corporate sponsors, and then our community impact or judges group. So the community impact group records what we do outside of the team for our community, and they are responsible for presenting that information and information on the team to the judges at the events. So the next page has an organizational chart, which kind of shows our breakdown. Rotate. So again, we have a team leader. We also have two student team captains. So the student team captains kind of act as a liaison between the student group and the leader or the mentors. So we find this works out well because sometimes the students are more comfortable talking to other students about things rather than going directly to a mentor. So the students will talk to the student team captains, and then the student team captains will funnel the questions up to the mentors. And then each subgroup we have, or sub-team we have, has a team captain. So they're basically responsible for helping to organize the other students on their sub-team and making sure that, you know, during meetings and during the build season that the students are coming and that there's enough students to get the work done. So this is good. We find that this is good because this helps to put students into leadership roles. I guess I'll take a quick step back on my history. So I was actually a student on Team Rush when we started back in 1997. And this was actually the first, excuse me, the first real leadership role that I had. So I was voted team captain, and by having that leadership experience, I think really shaped where I am today. So giving me that first chance to help lead people and lead a group and a team has really affected my life. So if you have students that you think could be good leaders in the future, this is a great opportunity to let them shine and try something. So section 2.3 goes into the calendar. Again, I'll skip down to kind of where we're at in December. Again, this is stuff that we've done and developed over our 20 years of doing FIRST. So this is by no means dictating what you should do, but there are a couple things in here that are good suggestions. We have our students do progress reports every week to make sure that their grades are up, because the worst thing that you get is that parents come and complain to you that their kids fail in class because they're doing FIRST. So we try to make sure that everyone has a C average or better. I believe they need a B average to be able to travel. A C average, sorry, C average to be able to travel. So we start collecting progress reports in December, and we continue throughout the season to collect progress reports so we can understand where students are struggling. Another thing that we have on the team, which seems to work well, is before our meeting starts, we do an hour of studying. So there's an hour study session where the students can work with each other and get help from each other, can get their homework done before we even get into robots, just to make sure that they can keep their grades up. So then the calendar, we start getting into January with the kickoff, and then February. So through January and February, you have your build season. at the, I believe this year is like the 22nd or 23rd of February is probably going to be the ship day. So that's when, or bag day. So that's when the robot will be put in the bag and you won't be able to touch it until you get back to competition. And then in March and April, you'll have your district competitions, hopefully the state competition, and then possibly the world competition. Section 2.4 goes over some checklists. So here's like a preseason checklist. So what to do before the season starts. Going through the kickoff, when the kickoff's revealed, what to do during competition, and what to do at the events. So this may be helpful to kind of take a look at and see what you might need help with before the season starts. Section 2.5 talks about continuous improvement. So this is a system that we established basically from day one on Team Rush, is at the end of every meeting, we do what they call pluses and deltas. So pluses are things that went well at the meeting. Deltas are things that need to be improved on. So they're not negatives. There's something that, that should be able to be improved on for the next meeting. Everyone in the room gets an opportunity to participate. You can't rebut anybody's delta or plus. And there's no name calling, no blaming. So it's basically officer forum for everyone to get something or whatever's on their mind out. So in the example here, there's pluses were the meal, so that's always a big plus is food. You know, some technical stuff, the gyro and string prod are working. Some of the deltas were that the meeting went late, so that's something we could try to improve on. For the next meeting is try to get everyone cleaned up and done on time. So again, this helps us to set our goals, or to know what's going good and going not so good with the team. So this helps us determine what the goals for the team are for the next meeting, and then we go and try to execute those goals. Excuse me. So the next section is on communication. Again, we've been around for a while, so we have a lot of these communication mechanisms available. For a rookie team, I don't expect rookie teams to have, you know, a full team website up. But some of these are very good to have, an email group list or a phone tree, just to be able to keep in touch with your parents and your students. And if there's, you know, something that happens, they can call down through the phone tree. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Remind 101 software. So it's basically a text that you can sign up for, and it sends a group text to everybody who's on that list. That's been really a nice utility to have. We use that when we're traveling back from competitions, so the parents know when to pick up the students at the high school. So we'll send out a text like when we're a half an hour away saying we're about a half an hour away, be at the high school at this time. And it's really helped, you know, get the students back to the high school with their parents and get them back home. Again, Twitter's another utility that we've used a lot. We tweet out information about the team, things that we're doing, just to let everybody who follows us, be it parents, be it administrators at the school, be it other teams, know what we're doing. So we've also done weekly newsletters. Again, I don't expect a rookie team to do a newsletter, but it's a good way to get information out to parents and sponsors about what's going on with the team. We have a couple examples of meeting minutes from parent meetings. And then press releases. So if you have somebody in your group or with your group or even through the school that may be able to create a press release or release a press release about what your team's doing, that always helps to get a little bit of buzz in the community about robotics and maybe gain some interest for your team. As part of our build season process, we'll also do a weekly design review where the groups will get everybody together just to show the rest of the team what progress had been made on their component. Again, if you have a small team, this is probably not necessary because your groups are probably going to be working close together anyways. But it's nice to have this set of documentation so you can see kind of the progression, and you can remind the students of the progression throughout the season. You know, you can remind them that, you know, this idea didn't work out so well, this idea worked great, this is why we've developed it further. And this is nice too for judges at the competitions to be able to see that design process and that development of your robot. So I'm going to skip over team retreat right now. So again, for the media and management team, have somebody specified to be able to take pictures. Make sure those pictures get uploaded if you create a team Facebook page. Have your pictures uploaded to Facebook just to keep a record of what you've done during the season. Section 2.9 talks about the student captains, which I talked about a little bit. At this point, it may be too late in the season, but maybe for next year we do a student application process. So it's basically an essay that the student has to write, sign in or sign up from their parents, just to make sure that everyone understands what they're getting into by doing first. Also, we recruit at different events. So anything FIRST related, Lego League, FTC, we try to go to those events, show off our robot as recruitment tools. Presenting to other schools in the district. So let me see. At the end of the year, we do an award ceremony. Again, it's not necessary to do that, but it's nice to kind of come in and celebrate the season that we had and kind of close up the year before the summer starts. Is there any questions so far?
No.
Okay.
No, I think go ahead.
I don't want to overload you with information. There's something out there.
Yeah, this is great stuff. I mean, as a resource.
Okay. So then chapter 3 is on financials and fundraising. So it gives, again, the budget. Don't pay too much attention to the budget numbers because, again, we've done a lot more, we're doing a lot more than a rookie team would do in terms of different events and different outreach opportunities that we do. So don't necessarily get scared by the numbers in the budget because it's not necessarily a rookie budget.
Right, but Jason, if you could go back to that budget, I think what would be helpful to understand a little bit more close up. Like if I look at your budget and I look at robot construction for $3,000, now I know you guys are doing probably you know, I know they're using pneumatics and stuff like that, quite possibly because you're an older team. But for rookie teams, I know that the robot kit is granted, but is the $3,000 just like out of pocket from fundraising that you guys spend? Is that just like a budgetary? And if it is, do you guys hit that number year over year, $3,000 additional?
We get pretty close.
Okay.
So the $3,000 is for things like aluminum and raw materials that you need to use to build your frame and build your arms. I don't know exactly what the numbers are in the past couple of years, but I believe we get pretty close to that. But then again, we build 2 robots too. We build a practice robot and a competition robot. So I believe that's total between both robots. So again, that's why the numbers may not be quite right, is because again, we're doing more stuff. So again, yeah, probably, I'm trying to remember back to when we were doing it back at Michigan Tech. I think we had, the first year I think we had $10,000 of sponsorship total. And that covered our entry fee, our building of the robot, and it must have covered most of our travel. So I'm pretty sure we didn't spend $3,000 that year. We probably spent maybe 1 or 2 just for the material to get everything, everything constructed.
Okay.
And that came from corporate sponsorship.
And what about equipment? Is when you say $3,000 for robot construction, is that just for materials? It's not equipment. And if it's not equipment, how much would you say the budget for a rookie team to just start building up, drills and
Well, so the first year we built, when I was up at Michigan Tech, we built in Houghton High School's wood shop. So we had access to some equipment there. We brought drills from our parents. So we brought drills and bits and stuff from our parents and borrowed them. So that may be the first step as a rookie team, is see if anybody, anybody's parents have a drill that they'd be willing to donate for a couple, for 6 weeks while you're building, or for, let's say, 10 weeks, well, probably longer than that, for like 3 months while you're going through competition season. I'm trying to think if we didn't really buy much tools. We did mostly borrowing when we could. Maybe a couple, I guess, tools that are good to have in a rookie season would be, a good hand drill, which are about, $100. An Allen wrench set, which is probably, depending on where you get it from, $5 to $10. Some open-ended wrenches or a socket set, so that's probably like $15. So there's
right. They gave us a list of stuff that would be good. I was just wondering, like, for rookie teams, just like a budgeted dollar for tools as we're building in the first year. So
if you were going to buy all your own tools and not borrow them, I would probably say you could get a pretty nice set of tools to build a robot for about, let's say, $500.
Okay.
That may be even a little bit high.
Okay.
Without borrowing from anybody, with going out and buying maybe a couple drills and a couple sets of Allen wrenches and a couple sets of regular wrenches and like a saw, probably I would say $500 would be a good start.
Okay, will do.
But then again, with that, I would say utilize your network as much as possible, though, and see if a parent would be willing to let you borrow their tools, or if the school has a shop that they'd be willing to let you use to do some of the cutting of larger things.
One last question for you. Do you guys send out a mailing? I noticed you put on your budget a mailing. I know postage can be, quite expensive when you're trying to create a community kind of. So do you guys often do mailings to community, or do you just do it for just like the Team Rush parent community?
I guess that's a little bit older of a budget. We don't do a ton of mailing anymore. So what we did mail back in the day is we would mail out like sponsorship packets to certain companies that we were asking for sponsorship from. Now we either try to do a site visit, so we go there and actually give it to them, or we will email it to them.
Okay.
So mailing is not necessarily a budget line item anymore.
Okay.
One thing that is important to establish as soon as possible is the control of how you're going to purchase stuff. Are you going to purchase it through the school? Does the school have, or I guess who controls the finances? Is it in a school account, and how do you get access to that funding from the school account? Is it going to be, maybe the mentors purchase it on their credit cards and then they get reimbursed from the school? So try to figure out that process, realizing that you'll probably be making orders at night or on the weekends. So having access to that stuff readily available is important. If it takes 2 weeks for a school PO to be made to buy something from McMaster-Carr, that's not gonna work for you, because you're gonna need that material as soon as possible because you need to finish your robot. So being able to have a credit card or being able to get reimbursement from the school is helpful, or have some type of a school credit card that you can use to purchase materials. So try to figure that out as soon as possible, so you have that established. Along with that, I think we talked about it on one of the rookie calls, is shipping. So you're going to be having stuff shipped to you probably. You need to make sure that where you're going to have things shipped to will be open, especially with schools and snow days. So sometimes UPS won't deliver to the school on a snow day because nobody's there. Maybe it's better for it to be shipped to one of the mentors' places of business that's probably going to be open, and they can bring it to the meeting, or shipped to a mentor's home, where they can bring it again to the meeting. So having a place where your packages can go, where they're not going to get lost. And if it is going to go to the school, then try to figure out a procedure with shipping and receiving, so they know, okay, these are the packages for the robotics team, that somebody's going to come pick them up right after school. So try to come up with a system to be able to get your packages to you for when you're building. Is there any other questions? So Chapter 3.2 goes into a couple fundraising ideas. First, actually, these are really a good deal if you can get them. First has an LED light bulb that they sell. I think the team pays $5 for it, and you can sell them for however much you want, and then the rest of that's your profit. They're really good light bulbs. I bought a whole bunch and have them all over my house. So that's sort of like first analogous fundraising opportunity to like the Girl Scouts selling Girl Scout cookies. We sell light bulbs. So it's a good opportunity to earn some good money. I'm not sure how much an LED light bulb sells for at Home Depot now. But when this project started, it was quite a difference. There wasn't really LED light bulbs on the market. So it ended up being a pretty good fundraiser for us. So there's sponsorship packets, which we have an example of later. There's other information about getting in touch with your Chamber of Commerce. That's proved to be a really good resource for us. We talked to the Chamber of Commerce. They gave us their list of members, and then we started calling or visiting the members and asking for donations for the robotics team. Just to give you a little bit of history, again, we started Team Rush back in 1997. We had one corporate sponsor. It was the Bud Company. And that model worked for us for many years. So the Bud Company was our sponsor 1 year. Chrysler was our sponsor for a couple years. Another Tier 1 automotive supplier was our sponsor, our single sponsor for multiple years. And then things kind of went bad 2005-ish, where we found that getting large corporate sponsors was not a sustainable method for keeping the team funded. So we started going out to our small businesses in the area and basically asking them for donations for the Rush Regatta, which is another chapter. And if you get enough $50, $100 donations, you can get quite a bit of money. So we went to the local casket maker, the funeral home, the garbage disposal or trash disposal companies, and just told them about what we were doing and asked them for a donation. And we get the majority of our funding for the team comes from our local businesses in small, probably less than $1,000 increments. So it's good to involve your community, because now the community has a little bit of buy-in, and then you get the funding that you need.
It's pretty cool.
What was that, sorry? Did somebody say something? Okay. So we've also hosted a Parents Night Out activity where parents could drop off their students and go do shopping or whatever. We usually try to do this around the holidays. And then the students on the team and parents and mentors on the team would help to watch the students while the parents were out doing their Christmas shopping or whatever. So there's some information on that fundraiser. And then there's a list of a couple more different fundraisers that we've done in the past. So Chapter 4 is all about the regatta. I'm not going to go through it fully, but this is our big fundraising event. And again, you don't necessarily have to have an event tied to your local fundraising. You could still go out and ask your local community for sponsorship. But this was just one way that we set up to try to engage the community, have our students do an engineering challenge, and help to fundraise for the team.
So, Jason, how long is your Rush Regatta? Is it 7 days? Is it 2 weeks?
So the students build and do fundraising basically from I would say like the second week of June through the probably second or third week of July. And then the race is 1 day. It's on a Saturday. So it all kind of culminates in one big event. but the fundraising portion and the boat building portion goes for about a month. So again, Chapter 5 goes into some of the sponsorship information. Again, we talked about this on the call. If a company doesn't want to donate money or is not able to donate money, ask them maybe for some in-kind donations. If it's like the hardware store, you can ask them for aluminum plate, steel rods, fasteners. Maybe you can ask them for tools. Maybe they can donate you a drill. Maybe some of the local businesses, maybe you have a local machine shop that will build some parts for you. So don't necessarily just go in and asking for money. You can ask companies for different in-kind donations too. Even things like uniforms or meals. I know we asked, I think it was On the Border. One of the parents went to On the Border and asked them if they'd be willing to donate or discount a meal for the team. And I think they gave like a 20 or 50% discount on the food that we bought. So yeah, basically you can ask for different in-kind donations too that also help offset the monetary costs. Again, it talks a little more about the Chamber of Commerce partnership. Gives an example of a flyer that we made up that we give out to sponsors. And then a sponsor reply form. So Chapter 6 talks about community impact. This is probably not going to be a priority for you the first year. The first year you're going to be trying to get your robot up and running, trying to build your team, trying to get stuff going. But in the future, part of FIRST's vision and message is to spread STEM to as many people as possible. So some of the things that we do to spread the message of FIRST is we go to different community events and demonstrate the robot. We try to demonstrate the robot at assemblies and pep rallies, at different PTA and booster club associations, go to the school board. So we do a bunch of meetings or a bunch of demonstrations at the end of the season to show people what we've done as a team. So again, just ways to get the word out and to advertise your team. Are there any other questions right now? All right. So this is getting kind of into the nitty-gritty of it. So this is the build season section, Chapter 7. So this is what we're preparing for on January 9th. So before kickoff, you should review your resources. Again, make sure your purchasing set up. Make sure your shipping set up. Try to recruit parents and students. Understand how many mentors you have and what their skills are. Have your build space secured. Divide up your team into sub-teams. Try to gather some of your materials and tools. If you can, take your team through some trainings, at least safety training, and let them know if they're going to be operating machines or operating tools to let them or to help or to tell them how to operate those tools safely. Again, on the conference call, we talked about TIMS, so that's very important that that gets done, that your team roster is established. Come up with some standards. Again, how are you going to purchase your parts? What softwares you're going to use during the season? How you're going to handle the pictures that you're going to take? You know, how are you going to set up the file structure for that? Let your sponsors know that kickoff's coming and that you're getting ready to start the season. And then 7-2 goes into the kickoff weekend. So again, like we were talking about on the conference call, if you can get to a local kickoff and bring your whole team, that's probably the best. If you can't get your whole team to the kickoff, it is webcast. So what we normally do is we send 2 representatives to the kickoff to get the kit, and then the rest of the team and the mentors stay back and we watch the webcast at the high school. This helps because once excuse me, once kickoff's over, they'll give the password for that year's game manual. So it's nice to be at the high school because we can start printing off chapters of the manuals and get everybody reading the manual and understanding what the game is while the kit's being transported back to the high school. So then our 2 to 3 members come back with the kit of parts. We go through and we inventory the kit of parts to make sure that we've gotten everything and that we didn't get shorted any parts. Again, I'm talking about printing the game manual, printing the field schematics. So depending on what the game is, it may be helpful to have a group of parents that are available on kickoff day to help go out and procure some of the materials for building some of the playing field components. There's usually a low cost and an actual field drawings. So you got to look at those two. You probably want to use the low cost one, but realize that some of the components in the actual field may be different than on the low cost field. And again, you don't normally have to build everything. Sometimes you'll just build, like last year's game, there was a step in the middle of the field. We just built a small structure that emulated the step. So we understood basically the size of it. So we can help you with what parts to build and not to build when we talk on the rookie calls, or what we think would be important to be able to have to test with. So usually what we do is Saturday you get the game, you read through the instructions. We try to have everybody understand what the game is and what the rules are. We also will try to do a mock game where the students will act as robots and they'll try to play the game just so they can get a feel of how to score. And then usually on Saturday or on either late Saturday or Sunday, we'll discuss our strategy and come up with what do we as Team Rush want to do for this game. So then after that, we start designing toward those parameters, and then we go from there. Another thing is identifying and purchasing game pieces. It hasn't been that bad in the past couple years because the game pieces have been distributed through Andy Mark. And for those of you who don't know, Andy Mark is, I don't want to say first official part supplier, but it's one of the part suppliers that First uses a lot, and they distribute a lot of things through Andy Mark. So if you've already done your first choice, So First Choice is distributed through AndyMark. And again, a lot of the game pieces and stuff will be available from AndyMark to purchase from them. I remember in the past years, in 2009, we had to buy these Orbit balls, which you could buy at Walmart. But they were like a discontinued item, so you had to find them on the clearance shelf, so it was kind of a mess trying to get them. But again, that's been mitigated in the previous years by going through AndyMark. So again, in the first couple days of the season, you want to develop your game strategy and figure out what you're going to do for your Auton and Teleop modes. I guess for those of you who don't know, we'll go through what those are. For the past probably 10 years, the actual competition game has had a couple separate phases. There's usually been an autonomous mode, which is usually the first. It's been, I think, as low as 10 seconds up to 30 seconds worth of time where the robot runs a pre-programmed routine not controlled remotely by the drivers. So it'll use sensors or time and move to certain positions on the field or do certain tasks without human intervention. So after those 30 seconds are up, then starts teleoperated mode, where your drivers will be able to drive remotely using remote control, drive the robot around the field, play the game. Then sometimes, depending on the game, there's what they call the end game phase, and that's usually like the last 20 to 30 seconds of the game, where the robots may have to switch and do a different task, and can score points for doing that task. They'd still be teleoperated, but they would score additional points by doing that task. So, for example, in 2011, we had mini-bots, which needed to climb a pole, and you couldn't deploy your mini-bot until the last 30 seconds of the match, and then it was a race to whose mini-robot could get up the pole the fastest. So, and that was a totally separate section of the game. Some teams chose not to do mini-bots at all and just play the regular game for the rest of that time. Some teams just focused on the mini-bot and didn't play the regular game for the 2 minutes. So part of that is your strategy and what you think you can get most points at and what you think you can build with your resources. One, I guess, word of advice for rookies is don't try to do everything. Even as veterans, we seem to get into that vein that we can do everything that's on the field we can do. And sometimes it works. There are teams out there that will be very good at doing everything. And then there'll also be teams that are very good at doing specific portions of the game. So when in the competitions, when you can choose your alliance, a lot of thought goes into who complements your robot the best. So again, Chapter 7 kind of goes through and gives you some ideas of the different things that we've done for the games, and the cautionary thing, be aware of the reward, the amount of points that can be scored for doing something versus the wow factor. So an example is in the 2010 game, if you could suspend your robot from the tower in the last 20 seconds, I thought you got more than 2 points, but you didn't get a lot of points for that. So it really probably wasn't worth doing it for the amount of effort that you had to put in to make your robot hang from the tower. So again, that usually happens Saturday into Sunday, and then Monday we start brainstorming robot concepts. So we divide the team into a couple different groups, and they sketch up ideas on what they want their robot to do. Then we'll take a break to allow everyone to kind of decompress and think about the ideas, and then the next days we decide on on kind of a concept route for each of the different groups. So basically by the end of that first week, we have an idea of what mechanisms we want to build to do each of the different objectives that we've chosen. And then we break up into our sub-teams and then start the prototype, design, and build process. So again, week 2 and week 3 is, again, designing, prototyping, testing, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. The most important component of your robot is to make your robot move. So I know on the conference calls, Clinton Brandy has talked about their KitBot build on the Sunday after kickoff. If you can get that out of your way in week 1 or week 0, that's awesome. To be able to have a moving robot, even if it doesn't do anything but move, is awesome start for your season. Even if you can't make it to their seminar, I would suggest putting together your kit chassis, even if it's not the chassis that you're going to use for the competition. If you wanted to build something different, more robust, or to do something else, I would still suggest putting together your kit chassis just so the students get a feel for how to put it together and get it wired up and get it moving. And again, it's a huge moral victory too, to see the robot move. So if you got your, go ahead.
I have a question on that.
Mm-hmm.
So after launch, because I think the 9th is on a Saturday, correct? And then it launches.
Yes.
Do you guys typically go back to your facility at that point in time and start to sketch out or understand, you know, which part of the bot needs to do this, like the chassis from the object lifting part to the, you know, do you guys go back the same day, or do you, like for rookie teams, should we go back the same day, like Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, and start sketching so that when we come in on that Sunday for some kind of workshop or training and getting the chassis moving, we already know or have some kind of mental frame of how we, because I'm assuming that when we come in on that Sunday for that session, either you guys are going to tell us or we need to have some kind of idea.
So usually the way we do it is we're still in, definitely meet after kickoff on Saturday and discuss the game, and if you can come up with your strategy and ideas, that would be great. Usually, if you're going to the workshop to build the kit chassis, there's normally, you can either build a wide bot or a long bot, are the kind of the 2 options with the parts that you have. If you can figure that out before you build up your kit chassis, that'd be great. But you don't necessarily have to have drawings of what you're going to do. You just have to have an idea maybe of which objectives you're going to go for. And if you're going to go to Clinton Brandy's or the Engine Nerds kit build, and you can say, yeah, I want to build our robot to do this, they'll help you choose whether it's better to be a wide bot or a long bot.
And do we need to have tools available that we bring with us to do this? Or, because I know Gail had at one of the rookie workshops, she had tools available, but for I'm assuming for the day after the event, we need to have tools available to us.
I'm not sure on that. If they provide the tools, I want to say that they provide most of the tools, but I guess if you have a small toolkit at that time, and can bring it with you, I think that would be helpful. The main tools that you'll need to put together the KitBot are going to be a ratcheting wrench set, and I think there may be some Allen wrenches in there. So it's not very, there's not much to putting it together.
Okay. And this is just the chassis, right? This is just the base, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Let me Let me double check that real quick. I guess there's other kit chassis.
Are there YouTubes on how to assemble kit chassis and stuff like that?
Yep.
I haven't. Okay, there are. Okay, come on.
Let me. So yeah, so this is basically. This was last year's kit chassis, but basically it's this material. Let me see if I can make it bigger. So it's this aluminum channel material that already has pre-drilled holes, awesome for mounting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then has these aluminum bars that go across what we call churros, because they look like churros.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so really, let me see if it says what you need. So there are assembly instructions here. So if you want to get a head start and look at these assembly instructions, that would be good, because then you have at least an idea of what you're getting into. The chassis may not look exactly like this. Oh, but here you go. So here's the recommended tools list.
Okay.
So yeah, an open-ended wrench, a socket wrench, sockets, nut setter, a hammer. My internet will go a little faster. So yeah, that's really it. This is all the parts that you'd really need to assemble the kit chassis. And then this goes into all the parts that are included. So yeah, if you get a chance to download that manual and look at it, that'll be really helpful. And let me see, I'm sure there are YouTube videos, because I'm pretty sure we made YouTube videos. Yeah, so here's some long assembly methods, wide assembly methods, how to assemble the gearbox.
Okay.
So there's definitely some videos out there that you can watch to give you an idea of how to assemble the kit chassis.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Yep. So again, that's definitely a big moral victory, is to try to get that up and running as soon as possible. It gives your students an opportunity to be able to drive it around and see how much fun it is. It also gives you an opportunity to let them do a little drive practice to figure out who your best drivers might be, or who you think would work well for the competition driving. So it's definitely nice to be able to do that sooner than later. And then you can just focus, if that's the chassis that you think is going to work well for the competition, you can just build up upon that with whatever you're doing, your arms or your mechanisms. So again, into week 4, by week 4, you should have a drivable chassis. You should be developing. Oh, the other thing that's nice with when your chassis is completed is you can let your programmer start programming autonomous mode, or trying to figure out what they want to do in autonomous mode with it. So it kind of gives your programmers a chance to get involved with the robot earlier than later. Another important thing we start talking about in here in week 4 is to monitor your robot's weight and size and make sure that it's still within the constraints. So for the past, I don't know, probably 10 years, 8 years, your robot can be 120 pounds without the battery. The battery itself is about 12 pounds. And then last year we didn't have bumpers. This year we probably will have bumpers again to protect your robot. Those I don't believe had to be part of your weigh-in, but they had to weigh separately. They had to weigh less than 25 pounds themselves, but they didn't count toward your 120 pounds weight. Other things to think about is at the competition, you should have some type of a robot cart to move your robot around. And some type of graphics on the side of your robot. So you're going to be required to have your team number on your robot, I believe on two different sides of your robot at a certain height and a certain width. So you'll have to have some type of graphic panels or something on the sides to have at least your team numbers. Most teams will have graphic panels that will have their sponsor names on it too, to recognize the sponsors that help to get the robot funded and build. So week 5 is kind of getting close to the final week, making sure everything's tested and running and getting more and more drive practice. And then week 6 is finish up and get ready for bagging or shipping. I believe everyone's probably going to be bagging their robot. So, make sure any finishing touches are done. You've backed up the programs on the robot, more and more drive practice. We'll talk about this in the rookie calls, but there's inspection checklists that come out right about that time. So when you go to competition, your robot will have to be inspected. They'll inspect your electrical, they'll inspect your pneumatic, they'll inspect some of the construction of your robot. So they're going to look for pinch points or sharp corners or things that could damage the playing field. They'll weigh the robot. They'll check the size of the robot. And they'll verify that you have all legal components on the robot. So that checklist will come out about week 5, beginning of week 6 normally. And you'll just kind of go through and check to make sure your robot meets all the requirements. And then when you're done, you put the robot in the bag on that Tuesday, and you'll have to have somebody come and seal it up with a tag. The tag will have a number on it. There's a form that you fill out that you write down the number and have whoever bagged it up sign it. So we usually have a janitor from the school come and sign it, because it has to be someone not from your team to make sure that the bag's been closed and tagged.
And what kind of bagging are we talking? Are we talking about like plastic wrapping, or are we talking about
big plastic bag? It's probably
that?
It's probably no, that's provided from First. That'll come in your kit of parts.
Okay.
I think you'll get. I believe you'll get more. I don't know if you get 1 or 2 of them. But yeah, it's a big. I think probably it's a 4-foot by 4-foot bag. So it's pretty big that you have to get around your robot or put your robot in.
Okay.
Chapter 7-9 kind of shows our normal meeting schedule. So after school till 4 o'clock is the student study time. 4 o'clock we start the meeting, and 5 o'clock usually our mentors arrive, and then we work from 5 to 6. From 6 to 6:30 we have dinner, and then we do more work till about 7:45, where we reconvene as a team and do pluses and deltas. And then we end the meeting at 8.
Are the kids ever hungry in between, or do you guys provide snacks in between school and start of the meeting?
So yes, kids get hungry. What we've done is we've set up what we call a Rush Cafe. And what Rush Cafe is that parents will donate, like a 12-pack of pop, or some prepackaged snacks, and then the students will buy those, and it ends up being like a fundraiser for the team. So we've got a little refrigerator. We put in cans of pop, and if the students are hungry, they can take a can of pop and buy it, and then the funds still go back to the team.
Okay.
So rather than just providing snacks for everybody, that's a method that we've found that works, and then it helps, again, helps the team out.
And then do you guys provide, like, I don't know how many days you guys, it looks like during build season you build every day. But do you guys provide, I guess, an evening dinner for them every day then?
Yeah, so our parents, one of the requirements for being on the team that's on the application is that the parents have to provide 2 meals a season for the team. So usually we'll have a sign-up genius, and the parents will sign up for a date to do a meal, and then they'll provide the meal for the team. So that helps to kind of spread out the burden on everybody. So, and it helps the parents too, because you realize that your kid's getting fed and is not sitting there starving all day.
Yeah.
So that's worked out well for us. And usually the meals are really, really good. So as a mentor, I like to go, or that's part of the draw, is that you get a really good meal on the nights that you're working. So yeah, so establishing something like that with the parents is helpful to do now, to be able to be ready for the season.
Okay. Is there budget for that? I mean, do you guys budget that in, or do parents just go buy pizzas or Subways or McDonald's? Yep. And just
Parents buy that. So okay. It's not provided by the team; it's provided by the parents. So, and everybody again is required to do a meal, so you don't feel like you're getting cheated out of it.
So how many parents do you have in your parent group then?
So we have 33 kids on our team, which is a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So it's a little easier to open that up or to be able to do something like that with that many kids. If you've got 10 kids on your team, you might need to get a little creative. Maybe the students can bring an extra lunch or something that they can have for dinner, or extra snacks for themselves. Okay. If your team's on a smaller size.
Okay, no problem. I was just wondering how you guys do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how you do it now. I don't know how you did it back then, but I can see how you do it now. Okay. Well,
yeah. Still, even when we were a smaller team, we still had, I think we had parents bring meals, and maybe we ordered pizza one night of the week. Like the students just pitched in. Students and mentors pitched in, and we ordered pizza to try to reduce the burden on the parents.
Okay. And you guys built 2 robots. So question, do you guys need all 6 weeks for 1 robot, or do you just, because you guys built 2, like do you spend the first 3.5 weeks building 1 robot and then you copy it?
No, we usually build them in parallel. So, it's not that much more to if you have the resources, it's not that much more to assemble another robot side by side with the robot that you have. And usually the practice robot we test stuff out on, and then we use that to make design revisions, and those get integrated onto the CompBot. So, yeah, really our practice bot is basically like a prototyping chassis, right? So we prototype everything on that, and we build the same parts for the CompBot, and then kind of assemble the CompBot in parallel. But it ends up really being the CompBot gets assembled in the last week with the changes that we've made from the practice bot.
Oh, okay.
So again, for your first year, get your kit chassis built, build up on top of that. Don't worry about building 2 robots.
Gotcha.
So other things that go on during the build season, business-wise. So again, have students take pictures of the build process and with what they're doing. You'll probably need to have a couple parent meetings to help keep the parents advised of what's going on during the season. Your driver tryouts and trainings, so to figure out who your drivers for the competition might be. There are also awards that first offers that have essays and applications that need to be submitted before competitions. So there's competition judged awards, and then there's awards that they're also judged at competition, but there are some essay requirements that need to be done before you go to competition. Yep. So the couple awards that come to mind are the Chairman's Award, which is the largest award, or the most prestigious award that FIRST gives out, which goes to the role model team. So there's essays and stuff that need to be written for that. As a rookie, I wouldn't necessarily focus on writing the essays for the Chairman's Award this year, because you really need to get your program established first to win it. So I wouldn't focus time necessarily on doing it. I would maybe, if you have a couple students that aren't busy, I would have them look at the requirements and maybe start to write something. And you can go ahead and submit it, but I wouldn't focus your full team effort on writing your Chairman's Award essays. We'll have plenty of work to do getting the robot built and getting everything set up for competitions. The other award that needs to be submitted is the Woody Flowers Award. So that's done based on an essay that's written by the students about the mentor, or about a mentor on the team. So that's basically a mentor recognition award. So it's the highest individual honor that a mentor can get through FIRST. There's also the Dean's List. So the mentors will write letters or essays about the students, and each team can nominate 2 Dean's List award winners. They're usually juniors. So you'll write an essay about the students and submit it, and there's some requirements for that in terms of grades and what you need to do to apply for that award. But that's basically given to certain students on teams. So it's sort of like the role model student, I guess, if you want to call it that. So that's the highest honor that a student can receive from FIRST. Trying to think if there's anything else. You may need to submit your business plan for the Entrepreneurship Award online, but I'm not sure off the top of my head if that needs to be submitted online too.
And is that open every year, or is that just for rookies, the Entrepreneurship Business Plan people?
Entrepreneurship is open to everybody every year.
Okay.
Yep.
So if that's just selling products, though, right? Because when I think of entrepreneurship, I think somebody's first year just selling products. So is the product supposed to be the robot, or some gadget that the team builds, or?
So it's not necessarily what you're selling. It's basically, I guess it's kind of a little bit of a misnomer, but entrepreneurship is just showing that you have a business plan. So this is how you're going to fund your team. This is what you're doing. I guess your product is really what you're I guess I don't want to say what you're selling, but what you're doing is you're reaching out to the community. You're encouraging STEM education. Your students are going into STEM fields, that kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily a product per se, but it's just a way of, if you're organizing your team like a business.
Gotcha. So it doesn't ask for financials or anything like that?
What's that?
It doesn't ask for financials or anything like that? It
does. It does ask for a budget in there as part of the business plan. So it's basically setting up your team to run like a small business would, but you don't actually have to. You would include on your budget your sponsorships, but you wouldn't necessarily have to have income. That would be your income section, and then your liability section would be the cost for the registration, the cost to build a robot. They just want to see that the students are getting exposed to that type of real world business model.
Okay.
Other things to think about during the build season is your uniform. Having your uniform all set up, or uniform established with sizes and everything, getting those ready, and preparing for travel to the competitions. Also maybe trying to do food at competitions. So we'll usually either try to get food from local sources at the competitions, or we've done tailgates a couple years, which work out really well. The parents will come down and they'll cook hamburgers and hot dogs in the parking lot. So that's good to have. There's usually concessions at the competitions, so you could do that also. You could buy food right from the venues normally.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any other questions kind of on the build season?
I guess one last question for the actual competitions when we arrive there. Does first offer a schedule when what time we're supposed to compete, or do we just, is it when you get there, you register, and then that's when they?
So yes. So once you get there, you'll register. You'll get your robot inspected, and you'll get your registration packet. Which your registration packet will normally have, at least the first day will have a practice time. So you know when you can go on the field and practice with your robot. You'll have practice matches. And then usually the morning or maybe late night on the load-in day, once we know that everybody's been inspected and everybody's there, maybe actually early morning on Friday, they'll send out the or they'll give out the qualification match list. So that'll tell you what your match time is, what field you're playing on, what color you are, if you're red on the Red Alliance or the Blue Alliance, and then it'll tell you which teams you're playing with, and then which teams you're playing against. So you'll know all that on Friday morning before you go to compete.
And do they give us our robot the morning of, or how do we load? Because we bag it, right? We bag it and we tag it, and
Yep.
we have to send it back to first, correct? Or send it back to somebody?
Nope. You hold on to it there at your facility, and then you transport the robot to the competition. And then for the district competitions, they'll usually have load-in, which will be on Thursday night. It's usually after 4 o'clock. And what you'll do is you'll bring your robot in. You'll go to your designated pit area. You'll set up your pit area so that there'll be a table there. You might bring in your tools and stuff, and then you'll bring in your robot. And then it's changed the past couple years, but sometimes they'll have a representative that'll go around and will look at your sheet that you signed off on and make sure that the tag matches your sheet. And then they'll say, okay, you can go ahead and cut your tag, and then you can open your bag, and then you can start working on your robot. So you'll have your robot there at the competition. You'll transport it yourself.
And then Thursday night they'll do all of that. We can cut the back, so if we wanted to make some final additions or whatever on Thursday night, we could do that.
Yep.
Okay.
And then you'll come back Friday morning, and then you'll start into practice rounds, and probably still be making some small adjustments, and then then you'll have the qualification matches that'll start Friday. I think they start Friday afternoon or Friday like 10 o'clock. And then you'll play through your competition matches on Friday, or your qualification matches on Friday, and then you'll come back on Saturday and play in the morning a couple more qualification matches. And then when that's all done and everyone's played all their qualification matches, the teams will be ranked 1 through 8. And then basically before lunch at noon, they'll go through and you'll do what they call alliance selections. So what alliance selections are is the top 8 teams get to pick which teams they want to play with for the playoffs. So sometimes one will pick 2, and then everybody moves up. But depends on, again, what we talked about earlier is which robot fits better with your robot.
Right.
So it'll go 1 through 8 we'll pick, and people will bubble up depending on the in-picking within the original 1 through 8. And then it'll start from 8 back to 1, we'll pick the second team member. So you'll end up with 8 3-team alliances at the for going into the playoffs. And then you'll play the playoffs, which is usually double elimination, so best 2 out of 3. And you'll play through quarterfinals, semifinals, and then you'll have 2 alliances at the end that'll play against each other in the finals, and that'll determine the winner of the event.
Okay.
And then you'll have an award ceremony at the end. And that'll usually be done by 4 or 5 o'clock, normally on the Saturday.
Okay.
So, Chapter 8 goes into a little more detail on that. So there's competition and preparation. Important things on that is make sure you may need to get permission slips from the school district. And it's definitely good to have medical information for the students. If something were to happen to them down there, if they have allergies, emergency contact information, just in case at the competition. Also, we look at the students' grades, making sure that they have a C average before they can travel. If not, we try to get them more help and study time and try to get those grades up before competitions. And then again, review the documentations, understand the rules before you get out on the field. So again, emergency medical forms, permission slips, drivers. I know our school district requires a form for anybody that's driving students. It, gives your driver's license information and everything, and says that you haven't had any traffic violations. So that needs to be done before competition. And then there's a waiver release that's usually done through STIMS or TIMS. Both of them will have a waiver in there that you'll have to sign online. And it's a waiver and a photo release. Bless you.
Okay. Thank you.
So here's a little packing list for competitions. So things for your pit area, maybe some shelves to put your stuff on. We haven't talked about scouting yet. I'll get to that in a little bit. If you have a laptop for your programming group or for scouting, you can use that. Video cameras and pictures, first aid kit. Safety glasses is important. Everybody on your team will need a pair of safety glasses if they want to enter the pits. If not, they have some available that you have to check in and check out, but it's usually just best to have your own. So that's a quick list there. Here's an example of the emergency form that we use, the permission slip form, and our transportation in a private vehicle form. So the next chapter talks a little bit about the pit areas. So normally you'll have at least an 8x8 area to work in, but it can go up to 10x10 or sometimes larger, where you can put your robot and your tools and your stuff to work on the robot would be in there. So sometimes you want to have like trouble lights or extra lights to be able to work on your robot, flashlights available. We usually have a dry erase board or a poster board to post what our match schedule is so that the team can see that when we're going to be playing next. Usually you're not going to want to drag around your 120-pound robot. You're not going to want to carry it from the pit to the competition field. It's usually, I wouldn't say a fairly long distance, but it could be a long distance. So you'll want to have a cart that the robot can sit on. So we've done, we've got I want to say a little bit more complex cart now, but we've done, just like a furniture dolly that you put under the robot and allow it to roll around.
Right.
So again, we got a couple examples in the toolkit of our pit checklists. So things to check on the robot before we go out to a match, and things to make sure that are on the cart or that somebody has before they go out to the match. Things like, you know, the controller for the robot. You don't want to forget that. You want to have your drivers carrying that out to the field with them. And then we have a post-match checklist. So after each match, we'd go through and we'd check these different items on the robot to make sure that they didn't get damaged and that they're still tight and working. So for the competition, you want to try to have multiple batteries if possible with chargers, because you always want to go into your match with a fresh battery. So you want to try to at least have 2, maybe 3 if you can. I know 1 will come in the kit. I don't know if there's any more available through First Choice, but if those come up, you might want to grab an extra battery through First Choice. So you can have 1 charging on the charger while you're running 1 in a match, and then be able to switch out when you get back to your pit area. Yeah, you want to try to have at least 2. We recommend 4 to 6, just so you can keep them on a rotation. So also at the competition, we have study time for the students, because they will be missing at least 1 day of school. They'll be missing that Friday and possibly part of that Thursday, depending on where you have to travel to for your event. So we try to do at least 2 hours of study time for every school day they're missing to try to keep them up to date with their schoolwork. So we got a suggested packing list for the students on what to bring. Again, if you have parents, if you can recruit some parents to go to events with you, we try to have our parents do some of the shopping for the meals, or at least try to make reservations locally for where we can get the team in for a meal. So this goes through, you know, food packing lists. So there's a lot of good information here on setting up a food system for a competition. And then normal or travel rules for the students, parent chaperone information. So I'm not going to go too deep into this right now. We could talk about this more once we get closer to competition.
Sure.
So we did already talk a little bit about the competition and how it works. So you'll normally get a practice round, at least 1 practice round before the qualification matches. Then you'll have your qualification matches. And then you'll have your seeding. And then you'll have picking the alliance selection for the playoffs. And then you'll play your best 2 out of 3 playoffs. So now we haven't talked much about scouting. This is definitely a recommended activity to have your students do that are not driving the robot at competition. Is to watch other teams and figure out how other teams are scoring points, and you know, basically monitoring which teams are scoring the most points and having the most success during that weekend. You also want to watch out for some maybe diamonds in the rough, some teams that may not be scoring the most points in the match because their alliance partners may not be that good, but they may be able to score points independently. You know, for the chance that you'll be one of the pickers or during the alliance selection, you want to have a list of teams you want to play with already set up. So there's other teams out there. If you don't have scouting, feel free to ask one of the other veteran teams at the competition. They're usually willing to share their scouting information with you. But it's good to have your students kind of look through and understand the capabilities of your robot and what robots would complement your robot the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chapter 8.6 kind of goes through scouting.
Deals? Is it the lead technical mentor, or I mean, I know you can go out and scout, but who actually makes the deals of who gets aligned with who, how the alliance is formed? Is that at the mentor level, or is that at the student level?
On our team, it's both. So the students collect the information. We usually have a couple students that really get into scouting, and will sit there in the stands and watch every match religiously. They're usually invited to be in on the scouting discussions. And we'll go through the list and the team list, and we'll basically say, okay, these guys don't complement us well, so they're off the list. Okay, these guys do complement us well. Okay, then we'll figure out how they score. So maybe these guys score really good in Auton, and we need somebody that can help us in Auton. So then those teams will kind of bubble up to the top of the list. Or these guys are really consistent during the teleop period, and they score more points than everybody else. So yeah, obviously they're going to bubble up higher. So we kind of go through the pluses and deltas of each team and how they performed and how many points they score. And then we'll see who complements us the best, and then we'll come up with a list of who we'd want to pick. And usually,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Usually it ends up at the end being, I don't want to say mostly mentor-driven, but a good portion of it is mentor-driven with a lot of student input. So we don't really open it up to the whole team to vote. It's usually just a couple of students that are involved in the scouting.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that would, do you guys usually do that on Friday or Saturday?
So we scout both Friday, and Friday night is when we start making our list. And then we'll watch specific teams on our list Saturday morning and still gather more information on all the teams, but we'll specifically watch a couple of the teams that are in our top 8 that we'd like to pick to make sure that they're still performing the way we thought they were, or the way they were on Friday. And then most of the time, our list is pretty well established by Friday night. It doesn't change very much on Saturday morning. And then we'll usually send our representative out on the field if we're in the picking situation with the list, and then go through and cross off teams as they get picked until we get our chance to pick, and then we pick our highest ranked team for us.
Okay.
And again, so the highest ranked team for you may not be the highest ranked team in the competition either, because the way the qualification matches work is you'll have your 3-team alliance, and that alliance may win the match, and then that whole alliance gets the points. But there may be like a really good team that has had bad luck or randomly got paired with teams with an alliance that didn't do well, or they got pitted against other alliances that were way better. So maybe there was, 2 powerhouse teams on the other side, and it was just this one good robot with 2 average robots on the other side. So they would lose the match, but they're still a really good robot. So the rankings are not necessarily accurate to robot performance. So there may be really good robots that are ranked out of the top 8. And sometimes you get to competitions, especially at the state and world competitions, you'll be like, well, why did the number 1 seed pick the number 2 seed? They're the second best robot, right? Well, maybe not. Maybe not for that number 1 seed. Maybe that number 1 seed has a weakness that they need to shore up. Maybe they don't play defense well, or maybe they need someone that can play defense so they can do what they do good. And or maybe they need someone that can block other teams from disrupting what they do good. So there's a lot of strategy that goes on with scouting and with trying to decide who your alliance would be.
Okay.
But again, once we get toward competitions, feel free to ask veteran teams for their opinions and for their scouting data. Most teams are really willing to help give that out because they want to see rookie teams do well too. They want to see rookie teams be picked in part of the afternoon on Saturday too. So they want to work with you. They want to bring you up to the same level that they are.
Okay.
So again, Chapter 8.7 goes into awards a little bit. So again, Chairman's Award is the highest honor that first gives out to a team. And then Woody Flowers and Dean's List Award. Woody Flowers is the highest honor to go to a mentor. Dean's List is the highest honor to go to a student. And then there's a variety of other awards, things that will be judged by judges at the competitions. They'll come into your pit areas and they'll ask your students some questions. Sometimes the questions will be robot focused. Sometimes the questions would be team focused. Sometimes they'll just ask a variety of questions. One of the questions that we get pretty much every year from judges is, tell me about your team. So that's as generic as a question as you can get. But one of the things that you should do is have your students be prepared to answer that. So have them prepared to give a little 30-second blurb on this is our team, this is why we built our robot this way, this is what we're doing for our community, this is what we want to achieve this year, that we're rookie teams, that we've come this far, that we're doing all this cool stuff, and we're really excited about science, technology, engineering, and math.
Right.
It's just something to tell the judges when they come and ask the students questions. There also are some specific awards for rookies. So there's, I believe, I'm not sure if there's still highest rookie seed award, but there's Rookie All-Star and Rookie Inspiration. So those are two rookie-only awards that only rookies can win. So as a rookie, you might want to focus on reading those award descriptions and on what you need to do to win those awards, because you'll be in the smaller category at your district event. There'll be a limited number of rookies compared to veteran teams. So you have a smaller pool to be able to win that award from.
Okay.
Any questions? I know I've talked a lot.
We thank you for talking.
All right. Section 9 is on parent support. So again, your parents are one of your greatest resources. We ask our parents to do a lot in terms of meal preparation, getting the students to competitions, helping to book hotels, and that's why, like we talked about in the calls, it's important to understand what your parents do and how willing they are to help the team. If you have a parent that's a travel agent, ding, 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 they're the ones that you can try to recruit to have them do your hotel booking and travel arrangements because they already do it and they know how to do it. If you have parents that work for the newspaper or the local TV station, maybe they're the ones that help to coordinate your media outreach. If you have a parent that's a chef, maybe they help to arrange meals or are responsible for some of the meals. Again, anybody, or even if they have other family members that can do that, offer that kind of service, is helpful to the team. So learning about your parents, learning about your students, and then working with their networks is definitely an important part of making a successful team. So I'm not going to go through all the parent support section, but again, they're probably your best resource because they want to see their kids succeed as much as you want to see their kids succeed. And again, I don't know if everybody's explained the benefits of doing FIRST for the students. Not only do they get the awesome opportunity to work with mentors that are in industry, whether it's engineering, whether it's education, whether it's anything else. You get to work with real live people that do this job normally, and it may be a job that they want to do in the future. So they get that opportunity. They get to learn technical skills. They get to learn business skills. They get to learn communication skills, which is important for a lot of teenagers to be able to communicate with adults. Besides all that, there's millions of dollars worth of scholarships that are only offered to first students to go to universities. So again, you're in a limited pool of people to go for these scholarships. So there's a lot of benefits for both the student and for the parent by going through this program. So again, another thing we do is we keep a Google Calendar that has when our meeting times are, when study times are. So we use that a lot for communication with the parents to let them know when we're meeting. Here's kind of a list of volunteers, parent volunteers. So you can go through that if you can get parents to volunteer for certain events. We also do a directory, so that has our events that we're going to and the students on the teams and their parents on the teams. You know, what year the student joined the team, what year they graduate. This is very, very helpful if you need to communicate with other parents or other students. So there's some information on setting up a directory. Again, stuff for meals. And then there's a section on effective communication. So meeting with the parents, sending out emails. We have a separate parent email list. That information goes directly to the parents. We have Remind 101 that's specifically for parents that we send that information to. So again, it keeps the parents in the loop and understanding what's going on with the team. So we also have a glossary of terms here, which is nice for the parents to be able to understand some of the first terminology. So this would be probably good to go through as a rookie team just to understand some of the normal first terminology and some of the important people in first. So we talked a little bit at the last rookie call about Dean Kamen and Woody Flowers and Don Bossy. You know, these are, Dean Kamen is the founder first. He's the guy that invented the Segway. His company helped to invent the, if you've ever used one of those Coke machines at the fast food places that you can choose whatever flavors you want, his company helped to invent that. So he's done a lot. He started first back in '92. He's a multi-millionaire. He lives in New Hampshire. He's got an awesome house in New Hampshire. He's also worked on Slingshot, which is a device to purify water. And there's actually a pretty cool documentary if anybody has Netflix. You type in Slingshot, and it's about Dean Kamen and kind of a biography of him and his company Deca and the development of the Slingshot, and then talks about First and some of the other inventions he's done. So it's a cool movie to watch, just to get a feel for First and the founder and kind of get a little bit of the history of it. Woody Flowers is another name that I mentioned. So I think he still is the Paplardo Professor of Mechanical Engineering at MIT. So he's kind of he's the official, or he's the advisor, First advisor. So First, the competition portion was actually based originally off one of his classes at MIT. the projects that he had to do, or the projects that he had his students do for his class for MIT is what led to the basics of the robotics competition back in '92. So he's a big name in FIRST. And it's cool when you get to these competitions and you see these guys. So Dean came in, and if you watch Slingshot, you'll see in the video, his closet is full of denim shirts and jeans, and that's like the only thing you ever see him wear. I guess I actually saw him last year. He wore like a black normal shirt, not a denim shirt. But this, unassuming guy walks into this venue with all these students, and he's mobbed like a superstar. And it's cool to see that. Kids want his autograph. It's basically, he's mobbed like LeBron James just walked into the arena. And same thing for Woody. Woody is like another FIRST superstar. Any venue that he walks into, he's constantly mobbed by students thanking him and wanting his signature. And Woody has a coat that he gets student signatures on that's just covered with signatures. And it's really cool to see that. Some of the other terms in here, like gracious professionalism, is a term coined by Woody Flowers. You'll hear that a lot. So gracious professionalism is basically respecting everybody that's working around you or working with you, doing high quality work, being respectful of others in the community, basically not doing what Woody says is you act like your grandmother was always watching you. So anything that you wouldn't want your grandmother to see, you wouldn't do. It also is part of the FIRST culture that we try to help each other out. Because by helping each other out, we grow the program and we grow the inspiration. Teams want to win, but you're not out there to destroy the other team, right? It's not BattleBots. You're out there to try to win matches, but you never know, that team that you just destroyed in the match before may be your partner in the next match. So everyone tries to help each other. Everyone tries to elevate each other. Everyone's respectful of each other. That's kind of what gracious professionalism is. Is there any other questions? Okay, so there's some more information on parent recruitment, parent feedback. So some information on different things that we do. Again, we've been doing this for 20 years now. A lot of this stuff is not going to apply to you right away, but these are just some ideas of what things that we do as part of the community. So this parents guide gives information on the different seasons. So this may be something, an adjusted version of that may be something that you could give out to your parents so they can understand what FIRST is. So Chapter 10 goes into the rookie conference call information that we've already started, but we'll go into more information on when the season kicks off. Things like stims and tims, knowing your team number, recognizing your sponsors, things to assemble, getting your tools together, figuring out the room that you're building in, getting students recruited, parents recruited, other mentors. So this has a little more detailed list of what things to do. And basically we'll be covering this information week by week during the conference calls. But by looking at these are notes from, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. You can get a good idea of what you need to prepare for the season, or what you'll see during the season also. So again, this goes week by week during the build season and on the different notes that we've taken during the conference calls. So goals per week and other information. Trying to see if there's anything else that's super important. Oh, it also has the tool list at the end here. Some suggested tools to get.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a little section on team building and trainings that we do. So motivational movies. So we try to watch, actually part of our kickoff, or at the end of kickoff before we start, we'll watch the section of Apollo 13 where they get the bunch of parts and they have to build something to replace the carbon scrubber. So that scene where they dump everything out on the table and then they go to work building it. It's basically like what happens once you get your kit apart. You dump everything out on the table, and then you've got to build your solution. So it talks a little bit too in there about cheers and dances at the competition and just different ways to help build your team. So section 12 talks about students' responsibilities at the competition and how to divide up your students at the competition. Because again, your build groups may not necessarily be needed at the competition, but there's other things you'll need to do when you're there. Things like scouting, you have a pit crew, you'll have judges, you have media team. So some students after the build season will get reassigned into new roles for competitions. All right, so that's just a rough overview of the toolkit. Does anybody else have any questions? All right, that was 2 hours of really quick information. If you have any questions or want to rewatch some of the webinar, I'll post the video back out. If you have any questions, let me know, and we can try to work through them. If there's no questions right now, hope everyone has a great Saturday. And again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions or need more information.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
No problem.